Get the latest Impact podcast right into your inbox each week. Subscribe by entering your email address at impactpodcast.com to make sure you never miss an interview. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shigarian, and I'm so honored to have with us today Emma Reynolds. She's the Global Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Sustainability at Mars Food and Nutrition. Emma, welcome to the Impact Podcast.
Thanks very much, John. Lovely to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have you. It's your first time on, and it's actually Mars's first time on the Impact Podcast. And we're going to get into all the important and impactful things you're doing at Mars Food and Nutrition in a second. But before we get there, I want to start with you, Emma, your journey. Where did you grow up, and how did you get on this very important and impactful journey that you're on?
I grew up in the UK, which is where I am still based. I actually started my professional life after studying history at university, working in a political party, so doing policy work, and then decided I want to take that policy work and translate it into a business environment. So started off in a consultancy, a public affairs consultancy, and then had a fantastic time, learned lots about lots of different sectors, but wanted to make that move from advising companies to sort of doing the doing. So went for an in-house role, first at Tesco, retailer here in the UK, as government affairs director, then moved to AB InBev, the global brewer, then to Vodafone, which is a telecoms company, and then more recently here to Mars Food Nutrition as corporate affairs lead globally.
You know, Emma, I want to get back to, those are all iconic brands that you made career stops in, and I'm sure you learned a lot in all of them. Before we get there, though, let's go back to your childhood. Growing up in the UK, what were your dreams as a young lady that you had when you went to university and stuff? Were you thinking about sustainability? Were you thinking about impact, or did you have other dreams and aspirations with regards to your career?
I started off actually very interested in politics, sort of like precociously interested in politics in a way that sort of young people aren't normally interested, as like a 10, 11-year-old saying you want to be prime minister. And that was obviously a bit peculiar. So very much interested in politics. Then decided to study history. But actually at that point, I decided it'd be a good route into the law. I actually really wanted to be a barrister. Okay. And then while I was studying history at university, I then met some politicians, sort of rekindled my interest in politics, and then did some work experience during my time at university for this political party, and then actually started a full-time job afterwards. So ditched my plan, which was to become a lawyer or a barrister, and actually went into the political world. And I think it really got me excited again about the policy environment and the potential there. But as I said, once I did that for a couple of years, actually, it was like, how actually do I translate that into a business environment, see the opportunity that you can make change and have that sort of impact that you often associate with politics through business instead.
What were your roles those are all amazing brands. I'm very familiar with them. I spend a lot of time in the UK and in Europe. And of course, AB is around the world. Vodafone is an amazingly iconic brand, and so is Tesco. When you went to each of them, what are the different roles that you had when you made those career stops?
Well, because I started off in politics, my first roles when I went in-house into these companies was in the public affairs space. So
Got
doing
it.
policy, government affairs, advising them on how to interact with the political environment. But then as I progressed throughout my career, I then broadened that to the wider corporate affairs scope. So that encompassed communications, so both internal and external communications, and media, brand PR, regulatory. So when I was at Vodafone, a lot of time actually was spent on the regulatory agenda as a regulated industry, and also importantly, sustainability. So that's been part of the brief right back to Tesco, actually.
Gotcha. And what year were you recruited and came over to Mars Food and Nutrition?
I'm just coming up to my 3-year anniversary.
And
Mars.
and then were you recruited for this exact role, or was this?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes, so I joined in this role.
And okay, so let's talk a little bit about Mars. For our listeners and viewers who are not familiar with Mars, Mars was an iconic brand when I was even growing up, and I'm 63 years old. So Mars Inc. did about $55 billion in revenue in 2024. But then when it comes to Mars Food and Nutrition, you have about 2,000 colleagues and associates that you work with around the world, and you also in about 30 markets around the world. So Mars itself is a very big enterprise, but even Mars Food and Nutrition, which you're the leader of, is also quite a big enterprise around the world.
Yeah, that's right. I think there are 3 divisions of Mars, 3 segments of Mars. So we have our Mars Snacking segment, then we have Mars Pet Care, and then we have Mars Food and Nutrition, and that's where I work. So we have brands like Ben's Original, Tasty Bite, Seeds of Change, Dolmio, Master Foods, lots of wonderful brands that you'll find in markets around the world.
So let's talk about this. So Mars Food and Nutrition, it says, when I was doing my homework for this show, it says your purpose is to deliver tasty, accessible, and healthy food to all. How does that translate into the practical commercial world of what you do?
I mean, where we started in terms of our purpose statement was better food today, a better world tomorrow. And obviously that sounds great as a clear, inspiring vision. But what we really wanted to do is translate it into something that was really practical and meaningful and we could deliver through our strategy, which is where tasty, accessible, and healthy comes in. I mean, if we take a step back, I don't think purpose should be about nice, feel-good stuff that you do at the edges of the business. I think it really should be about what you're here to do as a business. So I want to reclaim the true meaning of the word purpose. And that's where we got to with making food tasty, accessible, and healthy. And we landed on those 3 things because we know that's what customers are looking for. Consumers are looking for that food that tastes great, is healthy, easy to prepare and access. And it's also what we know our stakeholders expect of us and how we think we can deliver real impact and value. And I think it's something really powerful about having something that's very simply articulated and meaningful. So rather than have something that sounds sort of very highfalutin, something that actually it does what it says on the tin, we can go out there and deliver that. It galvanizes our associates around a very clear purpose and objective.
I want you to talk a little bit about the brands, but first I want you to give your overall strategy of you're moving, the transformation of your food portfolio was to go from the side to center of the plate. Explain what that means. I never heard that terminology before, to go from the side to the center of the plate.
So we're lucky in our portfolio to have brands that over the years have become synonymous with sauces and sides, spices, herbs, and they'll continue to play a really important role within our portfolio. But we also see an opportunity to extend and broaden that offering so that we know that consumers are increasingly time poor. They're looking for quick, easy solutions for a complete meal. We also know that the ambient ready meal category, as an example, is growing. I think it's around 7% CAGR in the US. So we know there's a big opportunity there. So we're looking at how we can maximize that opportunity and do that through both our existing brands, so taking the likes of Ben's and seeing how we can move them just from offering a ready-to-heat rice option to moving to a full meal option through things like our Ben's street food offerings or Ben's lunch bowls, and also looking at acquisitions that play into that space. So we a couple of years ago bought Kevin's Natural Foods, which is a wonderful business in the US that offers sous vide meals. So how we can move our offering that extend it beyond just those sides to the full meal, and actually around 30% in that space at the moment now and continuing to grow.
How do you, there's a lot of information, the wonderful news, as you know, and I know, Emma, is that with the advent of AI, there's more information available to us than ever before, and available to everybody who, that exists on this planet than ever before. Unfortunately, though, as we also know, some of the information's great information, and some of it has a bunch of false narratives tied into it. So there's a lot of people now that, quote unquote, are influencers in the food and nutrition world. I'll give a couple names. Andrew Huberman, for example. Peter Attia, even is another example. Rhonda Patrick. Who do you look to for guidance in terms of trends that are going on? Obviously, you're running this business with the new trend of GLP-1s out there and peptides. Also, the high protein generation is upon us in terms of how to lose weight and keep it off, and also plant-based eating. So how do you take some of these macro trends that are here to stay and seem to be growing around the world and incorporate that into your into your purpose and into your portfolio?
It starts with the consumer, obviously. So making sure we're really understanding what it is our consumers are looking for. And we know that the three important things for them really are taste, convenience, and health. And so how do we use that insight and then translate that into product development, and making sure that we're really meeting those needs and understanding the tensions that they're facing and how we can best help them make those choices that are easy and healthy at the same time. I also actually think you mentioned AI, how we use AI to help us better understand consumers. Yeah. So I think there's some really great tools about how you can monitor emerging consumer trends, anticipate them even. And there's some good examples of how we've used that to identify big emerging trends like things like Pan-Asian, but also then test quite specific product development. So we've used it to say, what are consumers looking for in terms of noodle length or texture or sauce ratio, color. And actually that really helps inform and actually speed up our product innovation and development process.
Wow. That's so interesting. And when operating in 30 markets around the world, like you said, you brought up a great point. Besides some of the macro trends of protein and of plant-based and of GLP-1s, is also, like you said, different tastes are changing. Here in the United States, there is a huge taste for more immigrant food than ever before. I mean, Korean food is on the rise. Japanese food's hotter than ever. And then you have also food from all different parts of the world, the Middle East and South America. How do you balance those trends and how do you gauge what's emerging on top for each of the different markets? Because I assume you have to tailor your food portfolio for each market that you're in.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you're right. So I'd say that there's a growing interest all over the world for globally inspired flavors and cuisines. There's a curiosity, a desire to experiment, and we say that all over the place. But in terms of how that translates locally, you're totally right. There is definitely variation. So you see that in markets where there's a familiarity with a global cuisine through reasons of geography or sort of cultural history. So you might say Mexican food in the US or Indian food in the UK or Asian food in Australia. Let's take those examples. In those examples, actually the consumer's looking for a really authentic product experience. They're really familiar with it and they want it to feel very real and like they might get in those markets. Whereas if a consumer is less familiar with those cuisines, actually they're looking for more familiar entry points. So they might be looking at flavors they recognize, ingredients they recognize, formats they recognize. So as an example of that, we would say, so we have a brand called Tasty Bite in the US, which is about Indian ready-to-eat food meals. So there we've looked at things like butter chickpea, tikka masala, and even Indian mac and cheese. So how you can introduce people to cuisines in a way that also taps into some familiarity.
That's wonderful. Go back to AI. There's a lot of talk out there when you turn on Bloomberg or CNBC or read the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or any good publication that a lot of companies have made big spends in AI. And there's a percentage of those companies are very disappointed in their results so far. But there's also many companies, of course, that are saying they're getting many efficiencies out of AI, Latin for layoffs, Latin for less people. How has AI been, in terms of integrating into not only Mars Inc., the parent company, but more importantly, into what you're doing at Mars Food and Nutrition in terms of tracking trends and everything? Is it becoming a valuable tool yet, or do you see it becoming more valuable in the months and years ahead?
I'd say it already is. I would say the example we were talking about earlier around looking how you can map and track consumer trends, that's hugely valuable. And we know one of the important things in terms of the industry is how you can respond with pace to consumer trends, which can emerge quite quickly. You mentioned lots of examples of influencers, and we see that particularly actually with younger generations who are very much influenced by the latest social media trend in terms of food recipe inspiration. So how can we have a pulse on that and respond as quickly as possible? And AI definitely is a huge enabler for us on that area.
But even you, when you're just in the gym exercising or walking your dog or cooking yourself in the kitchen and you're listening to a podcast and you hear some information on latest statistics with regards to, let's just take protein and fiber being two very big things that people are focused on ever more than ever before in terms of keeping their weight down, staying clear, keeping their mind clear, and also keeping their digestive system moving. And now you hear about that. Do you go back to your chemists and your food engineers and your food people and say, hey, what are we working on that focuses on protein and fiber? Or how does that dialogue typically work between you as leader and some of your other, internal division people that make the realities happen at your company?
I think it's a combination of two things. It's looking at what consumers are telling us they are looking for. And we know you mentioned the example of protein there, that many consumers are looking for more protein. I think it's around 70% of Americans are looking to consume more protein. And also what the science is telling us. So we know that most consumers, most Americans in particular, well, not in particular, but including most American adults, do not get enough fiber a day. So they're not meeting their 25 grams a day of dietary fiber. So you take those insights that come from what the science is telling us and what consumers telling us they're looking for, and then combine that in your product development process. So, okay, we need to increase fiber. We need to make sure there's a strong representation of protein. We also need the product to taste great and be easy to prepare. So how do we combine that insight, that scientific knowledge, and our culinary expertise to create the product that we think will meet the needs of our consumers?
So interesting. When you study the 30 markets that you're in, which must be ever fascinating and interesting unto itself, is there a market that emerges in your studies and when you're doing your own homework that you say, okay, this market has always proven to be the tastemaker of what's about to happen around the world? Is there one or two markets, like, for instance, for this discussion, when Kim Kardashian comes out and posts something on her Instagram or talks about something, you sort of know you're at the beginning of probably a new wave of cosmetics or luxury items that she's promoting that has a chance of catching fire. Same thing with Joe Rogan and other big influencers. Who do you think are the biggest tastemakers out of all the markets you serve that informs you to focus on something probably more?
I mean, I think the US is one of the most important markets for us. So we are particularly interested in what consumers and influencers from that market are telling us, and also how that then travels across and influences other markets. And we really have seen those sort of social media trends on TikTok and Instagram, which have led to things from a food context. You'd see, the rise of cottage cheese or pistachio or Dubai chocolate, matcha, these sort of phenomenon that have started on the internet, on TikTok, on Instagram, and you then sort of see it spread more widely. As I have 4 kids, my eldest is 17. There was a period where we were basically only eating cucumber and sesame salads, it seemed, because it's something that had been inspired by the internet. So we're definitely very much keen to sort of follow those trends and see how we can lean into them.
That's fascinating. For our listeners and viewers who just joined us, we're so excited. We have Emma Reynolds with us today from the UK. She's the Global Vice President, Corporate Affairs and Sustainability at Mars Food and Nutrition. To find Emma and her colleagues, you can go to mars.com, but then there's also going to be links that we're going to put in our show notes that will take you closer to the Food and Nutrition division, and those will all be in the show notes, so you don't have to stop what you're doing and write anything down. Emma, talk about, you have 4 children. How much should they inform you as to what's hot and what's not? Hey, Mom, make more of this stuff. Or hey, Mom, have your food engineers invent this. That's what we want to really eat, Mom. How often do you hear that? And how often do you take that back to work with you?
Quite a lot. Actually, what I think is really reinforced to me is the importance of meal times, if I'm honest. So a couple of years ago, so my youngest is 6 and they go up to 17. But a few years ago, I was like, right, I really want to, and I've got a busy job, my husband's got a busy job. The importance of getting together around the table every day is huge for me. So notwithstanding busy days and commutes and everything, it's very important that we all sit around and have our evening meal together at the time of which we can chat about the day. My son can complain that there's too many vegetables on my plate, and my daughter can give me other feedback, and I get lots of feedback about what's on the table. But it's such an important moment for us all to come together. And back to where we started the conversation on purpose, I just think food is just such a wonderful thing about bringing people together and really encouraging both physical and mental well-being. And I think to be in a job that enables you to actually promote a purpose that is very meaningful for you personally and for your family is a huge privilege.
How often do you get samples of new things that your food engineers are creating, but they want feedback on, and you bring it home to your family and you get thumbs up or thumbs down over there?
I do. In particular, the innovation that we've been bringing home quite a lot recently has been, we have a range at Dolmio, which is a pasta sauce range in the UK and Europe. And we've recently gone into this ambient ready meal space with them. So it's ready-to-eat pasta with sauce. And this has been like a sort of saviour for school holidays. So if my kids are, not looking after themselves, I will be here, I promise. But, wanting to make themselves a lunch, I've been bringing back those, and they have been giving me lots of feedback about the various ranges. And I'm pleased to say, very positive. My family are obsessed with cheese, so they have to slather everything with cheese. But other than that, it's all been positive feedback.
Do you ever get to, given that you have a very broad, but also it's an amazing role, because corporate affairs and sustainability can be as narrow and broad as you want, as you well know. Do you ever get to define your job so broadly where you get to say to your team, hey, I'm going with some of our colleagues and we're going to go on a trip, and you're going to go do like the late great Anthony Bourdain and go do South Korea, Seoul, and Tokyo, and Shanghai, and Vietnam, and Singapore, and go search for new trends, and go eat the street food, and go see what's going on, and meet with different chefs around the world, and bring that information, back to the labs, back to your other colleagues, and brainstorm what you learned in one of those kind of fun journeys?
I haven't personally managed that bit yet, but it's definitely on my to-do list, John. What we do when we do market visits, which you will imagine we do a fair amount, we always make a point of, going out, going into retail, seeing how both our products are showing up and our competitors' products are showing up, going to restaurants, going to food exhibitions, and absorbing food as much as we can. We share kind of recipe ideas and inspiration all the time as a team. So food is very much part of the culture. I will put a little trip to South Korea on my to-do list, though. It's a very good idea.
What is your sustainability is part of your title. Talk a little bit about not only putting the right food and on the tables in your 30 markets that you serve for your customer base, but also where does sustainability play a role in terms of sourcing of the ingredients into all your foods, and then how your company, your division, with the 2,000 plus colleagues in the 30 markets out of the larger Mars Inc., how sustainable are the practices inside of your day-to-day, but also into the food that you produce and make and serve to the world for their appetites?
Well, Well, I feel really lucky at Mars in particular, because I do feel that sustainability is truly embedded in the way that we do business. And it does become from a sort of genuinely held belief that business success and positive societal impact go hand in hand. And that investing in sustainability is not just the right thing to do, but also an imperative for business. You need to do it for the resilience of your business in the future, as well as obviously more broadly for the population and the planet. So we have something at a Mars Inc. level called our Mars Compass, which sets out our shareholder objectives. And that puts alongside financial performance and growth metrics around positive societal impact, which include sustainability metrics, and trusted partner, which is around reputation. So that's a really good starting point for us. But beneath that, we then have what we call our sustainable and generation plan, which again sits across the whole of Mars and has 3 pillars. So the first one's around healthy planet, which is about our environmental impact. The second one's around thriving people, so how we can improve the lives of the people in our value chain and enable them to thrive. And then the last one's around nourishing well-being, which is about promoting the well-being of both our associates and also the consumers that we serve. And then under each of those pillars, so that provides the framework, we then have a series of science-based goals and then strategies that we deploy at a segment level. And then that does get delivered right across the business. So whilst I have got sustainability in my title, my role will be looking at the overall strategy, and the governance actually is everybody's job to deliver. So if you're in supply, and supply is a hugely important part of it, it's about where we're sourcing from, how we're supporting our farmers on climate smart agricultural practices, which means they reduce their environmental impact, but also protect their livelihoods and boost their incomes going forward. It means looking at logistics and how they can make those more efficient. If you're in R&D, it's around product development, so making it healthy, making it sustainable, looking at packaging. If you're in marketing, it's how you engage with our consumers. So it really is actually sitting across the whole business. And I think another important part of coming back to the Mars Compass, where I started, our long-term pay as senior leaders is also linked to performance against that. So if you're a senior leader at Mars, then part of your long-term compensation is influenced by our GHG reduction.
Fascinating. Because you operate in 30 markets around the world, and Mars Inc., which is again, 55 billion plus revenue company, is in over 80 markets. Talk a little bit about the patchwork quilt of sustainability regulations around the world, and do you believe in the future there'll be more harmonization of these, or you don't really feel it's moving in that direction yet?
I think it's difficult to say. I mean, there is some move towards harmonisation, but we also do see differences across different markets and geographies. So our job is to sort of seek to have the overarching strategy, which is what we believe is the right thing to do as Mars, and that's our kind of North Star direction in terms of sustainability and the goals that we're working to as a company, regardless of regulation. They're sort of stretching and ambitious, but obviously then we also need to make sure that we're meeting individual requirements within individual markets. And I think consumers' expectations are also a bit different across markets as well. So it's actually how you bring that all together, our own beliefs and commitments as a company, what our consumers expect of us, and also the regulatory environment, and also the kind of infrastructure that's in place within those markets as well, that may or may not support some of the efforts that we're making.
Emma, besides protein and fiber, what are some of the latest or the newest trends and food preferences that you're seeing evolve in recent years? And do you have some new products coming out to answer those food trends in the coming months and years ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on convenience. So actually, how you can move into this ready to eat space in a way that actually meets the consumer need for something that's very quick and readily available, so they can open up their cupboard and have a meal in 2 minutes. Health, as you've touched on, super important. And then taste, we know, is always going to be the most important thing. And I think that's where we see this drive for globally inspired cuisines and flavours. I think if we look at, take Kevin's Natural Foods as an example, which is a really great example of a business that is very much meeting those needs around taste, health, and convenience. The whole ethos is around making healthy eating convenient without compromising on flavour. They, in the last year, have looked to go into some new spaces, so with frozen entree bowls and stir-fry quits. And actually what they really do, they appeal to millennials in particular, but also millennial males. So how do we reach that audience and engage with them? So we've done some nice projects with Barstool Sports in the US. So it's about having good social-first content that engages consumers where they are on the things they're looking for around taste, health, and convenience, and this desire to experiment with new and interesting flavors.
I love it. Who inspires you? Like, how do you find your inspiration? Do you look to other brands? Do you look to specific leaders? How do you get inspired, Emma?
So I mean, I start off, I am a foodie, so I think that's all that makes my job a whole lot easier. Right. So I have a bookshelf that is groaning with recipe books. I have all my sort of newspaper apps, all my sort of favorited articles, the ones with like weekly recipes and inspiration. So I'm constantly looking for kind of new inspiration personally, following trends and chefs. So that kind of really inspires me. And I bring that passion, I hope, to work with me, as well as I, hopefully demonstrate it at home with the way that I try and get my kids around the table and really appreciating different flavors and cuisines.
Emma, the world has changed so much since we were 21 years old, and I'm much older than you, but it's still changed massively. But you've pulled off this this delicate dance and magically are a wife, a super mom to 4 children, and also you have a career. You've crafted a career for yourself with iconic brands, and now you're here at Mars Food and Nutrition. You're not only making a living and making a paycheck, which we all have to do to pay our bills, but you're also making an impact. What would be the advice you give to the next generation coming right now out of high school or in college or going to graduate school who are looking to follow your footsteps? Do they want to have a personal life that's meaningful to them, but they also want to have a career that they can make a living at, but make an impact in? Is there some advice and wisdom you'd like to share with our next generation that's coming up behind us?
I mean, I think it's being really clear on what your own personal values and motivations are. So, I mean, you spoke very kindly about my career. First and foremost, I see myself as a mum and who wants to be able to provide the best life possible I can for my kids. And that's about not just putting food on the table financially, but bringing them around the table to eat, inspiring them, supporting them. And that is my number one priority. I'm lucky that I've also been able to combine that with a job that I enjoy and that I feel delivers real purpose and value. Because if you're not with your kids all the time, if that's, you want to make sure that when you're not there, you're also doing something that you really believe in. So I think being clear on what matters to you, and this, what matters to me might not matter to someone else, and that's totally fine too. But being really clear on what really motivates and inspires and makes you feel good. I also just think being open-minded. I think, you could sit there and have a career path when you're 21 and say, right, when I'm 25, I'm going to do this. When I'm 30, I'm going to do that. And I probably started off like that too, but you don't know how things are going to change. You don't know what opportunities are going to come to you. So being open-minded to them. I mean, I would say have a kind of leaning towards saying yes to them and just seeing where they will take you, rather than saying, well, I hadn't planned that till I was 28, or actually I thought the next step was going to be this. Be open-minded, take opportunities, embrace the opportunity to learn and take risks and try new things, because you don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. So let's just embrace it.
That is just wonderful, wonderful advice. I hope the next gen that's listening to the show takes it to heart. Emma Reynolds, thanks for spending over 45 minutes with us today. And for our listeners and viewers, to find Emma and her colleagues, please go to www.mars.com. And of course, we're going to put some sublinks into our show notes so you can go directly also to Mars Food and Nutrition and see all the important, impactful work that Emma and her colleagues are doing. Emma, it's been 45 minutes of joy with you today. But more important, I just want to say thank you for making the world a more sustainable and better place.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.